Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. Our mission is to see a world well led. And our strategy to get there? To empower leaders like you to lead every day. So let's get to work.
I dream about a world that is well led. What are you dreaming about? Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. We are talking about seeing the future. And I'm Randy Gravitt.
And I'm Mark Miller.
And when we think about this idea of seeing the future, we're giving you some how-to the last few days. And today we're talking about dreaming. So I'm excited. I know you've been a little under the weather, but they got you here.
I'm thankful to be here.
And that's good. It's going to be good. I'm dreaming about you getting well and
Soon.
being able to,
Very
survive your trainer who's been pushing you pretty hard here. So
He's been brutal.
Yeah. I don't think he's paid to care, though.
He's not paid to care. He's paid to crush.
He's paid to crush you. That's exactly
He's
right. So that's
continuing
good.
to
So
do
let's
that.
talk about dreaming a little bit. I don't know, you've got stuff you're dreaming about, I'm sure, but let's help the people who are listening today dare to dream. I think it's a powerful idea that we continue to have more than what's just in front of us or what's behind us, like we've been talking about. But there's something in the future.
Yeah, and you'll remember part of the journey when we decided on that particular best practice. It's nested under this broader fundamental of see the future. But I'm fearful that far too many leaders are timid.
Yeah.
And as the architects of the future, if we're not daring to dream, if we're not seeing a bold preferred future, there are any number of unintended consequences, not the least of which is, why would people want to follow you? Why would people want to abandon something that's sufficient for something that may actually not even be better?
Yeah.
And so I think this is a best practice about challenging us as leaders in our spirit as well as our mind.
Yeah.
Are you really stretching what is possible and the potential of your organization?
Yeah, that's great. So the last few days we've talked about looking back. We've talked about remembering the past. And then yesterday we talked about being grounded in reality just right now. As we think about daring to dream, I want to encourage you to elongate your perspective. It's so important not to just dream about what's going to happen this week or even this year. I think sometimes we don't spend enough time thinking, what do we want to be true in 5 years? What do we want to be true in 10 years? And you may have a team, you're like, I'm not even going to be on this team. The way you dream and the way you train yourself to think into the future is going to be catalytic for your people and what's going on in your organization. So this idea of having an elongated perspective can be a powerful mindset here when we think about dreaming.
And you know, and some of our audience knows that I've had the privilege to spend some time with John Maxwell over the years. He's been a friend and mentor for me for really decades. He wrote the foreword to my first book 20 years ago.
That's great.
And one of the things he has said that has influenced me, of many, is that most leaders overestimate what they can do in a day, and they far underestimate what they can do in a decade. I just don't think enough leaders are thinking far enough out. And I think there's a generational challenge here.
Yeah.
And this is not a criticism. I'm just saying, when I talk to young people and I start talking about a decade, many of them are going, man, I can't think that far out. And
I may have 4 jobs in a decade or
but do you want those jobs to be strategic?
Right.
Do you want them leading to something? If you don't know where you're going, as Alice in Wonderland, the Cheshire Cat, it really doesn't matter which road you take if you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
And so, elongating your perspective, I think that's good for us personally. I think it's good for us professionally. I think it's good for our organizations. It's good for our health. It's good for our finances. I think we make better decisions as leaders
it's pervasive
with a long-term view.
Yeah. And as we think about that idea and this idea really of dreaming, I want to encourage you also to ask yourself, what is the risk if I don't dream? What's the risk if I don't think about the future?
Sure.
I think so many people are just going through the motions. They're not giving a lot of thought to where they're going. And the next thing you know, they don't end up where they want to go because they didn't really know where. I mean, it is like that Cheshire Cat. And so how do we really evaluate the risk of not dreaming?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's actually really simple if you've got the discipline to do it. You devote some time, probably alone in the beginning, and then with your team to literally document what happens if we don't change. and you think about the competition, you think about the environment, you think about your current trends, if you've got accelerating cost or accelerating employee turnover or decelerating, if that's the way to say it, engagement, if that's on the decline, you just have a conversation. Like, what happens if we don't? And as Henry Cloud says, just play the movie forward.
Yeah.
And do that for yourself and do that with others and go, they're real unintended consequences for maintaining the status quo, and almost none of them are good.
Yeah.
And so if you'll muster the discipline to actually play that out, and I mentioned one a moment ago, I want to come back to it. If you're not casting a vision for a bold and bright future, then why would anybody want to follow you?
Yeah.
I think it was Victor Hugo that said, dream no small dreams, for they have no power to stir man's soul.
Yeah.
It's who gets excited about the status quo? Who gets excited about mediocrity?
Yeah.
Not the folks you want on your team, not the folks I want on my team.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There's an old proverb that says, without a vision, the people perish. And you know, your people aren't literally going to die, but the morale dies and their dreams die. It's like the engagement dies. All kind of stuff really does happen when we don't have a vision of where we want to go, this idea of seeing the future. And so this is huge.
It's big.
Let me encourage you, if you're going to take that time to put it on your calendar and do some dreaming, yes, consider the risk, but one of the things I would encourage you to do is imagine the possibilities. I think there's so much when we just have a dream meeting with ourselves, or maybe a dream meeting with our team.
Yeah, both.
You talked about the idea of including some other people. It can be so powerful when we take time to just dream. And so what's possible? What could you accomplish? What is going to happen if you go after something? What's your biggest opportunity, project that you could put on your thing? What would change your business the most if you did these 2 or 3 things? All kind of things that could come out of that, a possibility meeting. But I love this idea of just we imagine as kids, we have these big imaginations. I think as adults, sometimes we forget that we have an opportunity to really dream, and it really can be catalytic, not just for us, but for the people around us, for our business, for our customers.
Sure.
All kind of stuff gets better when we dream.
And as leaders, we're uniquely positioned to do that because people expect us to have a vision. And so I would just echo what you said. What is possible? What would you do if failure were not an option? Now, we know failure is an option, but this is an exercise.
Yeah.
What would you attempt if you knew failure wasn't an option? What would you attempt if cost were not an issue?
Yeah.
I mean, you could just ask yourself several of those questions, and you'll begin to think bigger.
Yeah.
You'll begin to think broader. You'll begin to imagine the possibilities.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. All right, so we'll wrap up there. I want to encourage you again to go to the website if you've not done so, leadeveryday.com. If you've not signed up for our newsletter, you can do that there. We send a newsletter out Monday through Friday, just trying to help leaders. The link, some of you are listening through that link here, you get it, but you can get the show anywhere you get your podcast. We're also on YouTube. If you've not had a chance to check out the video, you can get that. I know there's some teams that are listening together, and that's great. Just having a little debrief on some of these episodes. That's cool. I would encourage you to continue to grow, do everything you can. It really is gonna increase your opportunity for influence if you'll do that. We've got the bundle we talked about yesterday. I'll mention it more later, but pre-ordering the book coming out February 27th. We're excited about Uncommon Greatness. If you're going to be uncommonly great, you've got to be able to see the future. And some of these things we've talked about the past few days hopefully will help you. We're going to continue the conversation tomorrow. Hope you'll join us for that. Remember, the best leaders lead every day.